Hello and welcome to Read Brave, a comics podcast from the Graphomania Podcast Network. I'm your host, Vinton Bain, and it's time for This Week in Comics for the week of November 15th, 2017. And I'm going to move a little fast because this week has a lot of comic news. This week it was announced that the Inhuman pup, Lockjaw, will be getting his own series, coming off of the Black Bolt series that he was such a big part of, and the Lockjaw mini-comics in the back of the Inhumans Once and Future Kings. I'm very excited about this 4-part comic book miniseries from Daniel Kibblesmith and Carlos Vila. Lockjaw issue number 1 will release in comic book shops around the world this February, and will find Lockjaw on the hunt for his imperiled, long-lost siblings. There was a trailer video released for Avengers No Surrender, the 16-part story that will begin in January with Avengers number 675 through 690. It will bring together the teams from Avengers, Uncanny Avengers, and US Avengers into one title. Mark Waid, Al Ewing, and Jim Zub are writing the story with art from Pepe Larraz, Kim Jacinto, and Paco Medina. I actually got really into watching the trailer, and I didn't expect that. I have loved US Avengers, and Avengers has been pretty good recently for sure. I have actually fallen way behind on Uncanny Avengers, and that's on my to catch up on list. But I've heard really good things, and I expect this will be really interesting, and I really am curious to see if they will be tying these titles together permanently or not at the end of this story arc. The original Jean Grey is returning, as most of you know, and in February, she will be leading a new team in X-Men Red. The team will include the all-new Wolverine Laura Kinney, Nightcrawler, Wolverine's sister Gabby, Wakandan mutant Gentle, Namor the Submariner, and a new hero, Trinary. And it has been teased that one more fan-favorite hero will be joining the team at least for the first arc. Here's the new description for Marvel's X-Men Red. When one of the most dangerous X-Men villains returns to wreak havoc, Jean's dreams of peace are threatened, and order starts to turn to chaos. It's mutant against mutant this February in the all-new adventure that will have X-fans on the edge of their seats as Jean Grey's team takes on the Marvel Universe. Only in X-Men Red. X-Men Red will be written by current all-new Wolverine writer Tom Taylor and illustrated by Mohamed Asrar. Tom Taylor has been killing it on all-new Wolverine. It's been one of my favorite comics coming out recently. I'm pretty excited about this. We also got our first clip promoting Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D's 5th season. They will be in space, as you might know if you watched the last season and saw that cliffhanger, and they will be fighting the Kree. And there's been some speculation that we may see the Brood even, that we may have seen it in that teaser trailer, but this is not yet confirmed. I'm pretty excited for what this season's going to bring. The last half of season 4 was completely wonderful. I'm really hyped for this show again. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is scheduled to return for its new season December 1st on ABC with a 2-hour premiere. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been announced in a character pack for Injustice 2, and all of a sudden, I want Injustice 2 for Christmas. Or before then, probably for Christmas. Video games are expensive. A new Star Wars trilogy was announced this week. Star Wars The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson will be sticking with the Star Wars galaxy with an entirely new trilogy. Johnson will be writing and directing the first installment, and at the very least overseeing the rest. Obviously, the company has not released a ton of information about this upcoming saga, but they did immediately clarify that it will be separate from the episodic Skywalker saga that we've had so far, featuring entirely new characters and locations. In that same vein of news, it was also announced that Disney is developing a live-action Star Wars series for its upcoming streaming service, which is expected to launch in 2018. Disney's upcoming streaming service will reportedly also include at least one live-action Marvel show, and it was reported that Marvel's Netflix shows will remain on that service, Netflix, including any spin-offs related to those shows, such as the upcoming Punisher, which comes out this Friday. Very excited. Anyways, I wondered if this show could possibly be the new Warrior show that I mentioned previously, starring Squirrel Girl, that is currently looking for a new home. We'll have to wait and find out. But it was also mentioned that this Disney streaming service is going to be cheaper than Netflix, substantially. I don't know what that means. But again, we'll have to find out. And I'm glad to hear it. I like cheap. Speaking of Netflix, Ellen Page has been cast as Vanya. I'm not sure if that's even pronouncing that right. Also known as the White Violin, in Netflix's Umbrella Academy series based off of the comic books by Gerard Way, which we still don't have a release date for, but I'm super intrigued by this. The full cast for Sci-Fi's adaptation of Deadly Class, based on the Image title by Rick Remender and Wes Craig, has been released. The Deadly Class TV series is executive produced by the Russo brothers, which I think is the perfect choice. A few of the cast members that stuck out to me are Benedict Wong, that's Doctor Strange's Wong, as Master Lin, Lana Condor, that's X-Men Apocalypse's Jubilee, as Seiya, and Henry Rollins from the punk band Black Flag as Jurgen Danke. Filming of Deadly Class pilot is expected to begin shortly, but no release plans have been announced as of yet. Also, while we're talking about these wonderful comic book TV adaptations, I should mention that Runaways premieres on Hulu November 21st. So soon. What a wonderful world we live in. So many good things. Moving on from there, Morbius, the vampiric Spider-Man character, is reportedly getting his own film from Sony to join the Venom and Silver and Black films, forming Sony's Cinematic Spider-Verse. They're really trying to build a connected universe based on Spider-Man without Spider-Man. I'm at a loss for words. I don't understand. Yeah. A while back, it was announced that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will be portraying the DC Comics villain Black Adam in the DCEU. It is now being reported that he will be making his debut in the Suicide Squad sequel film, which currently does not have any release date. Everyone has fallen in love with Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok, and people are now suggesting that she would be perfect to play Alana, one of the main protagonists in Brian K. Vaughan's and Fiona Staples' Image comic series Saga. And I couldn't agree more. I'm not alone, because Thompson herself admitted on Twitter that she is obsessed with the series and that she would enjoy doing that. Vaughn has previously said that there will never be a Saga film adaptation. But we can dream. Things can change. Right, guys? Right? After a ton of rumors, Ben Affleck has confirmed that he is looking for a graceful way to exit the role of Batman already. So don't expect any more of Affleck Batman after what has already been announced. And maybe don't even expect it in some of the things that have been announced. We'll find out. Justice League comes out this week, but the review embargo is still up as of this recording, which is not typically a good sign. Maybe they're just trying to hide spoilers. But this film has been plagued with all sorts of different things, and people are worried left and right, and now this. I just can't take it as a good sign. I hope to enjoy it. I do. I really do. We'll be talking about that film after we see it this coming week on the Excelsior podcast. Speaking of the Excelsior podcast, in our newest episode, we covered Valiant Comics' Faith miniseries, which is a really fun comic book, and it reminded me how good Valiant Comics are. I'm so into Marvel that I hardly have time to branch out ever, but I would love to catch up with all things Valiant. And if Marvel and DC seem too cumbersome for you, I highly recommend Valiant, which has a shared superhero universe, keeps their ongoing titles to a minimum, and only has 5 years of history to catch up on, since they completely restarted the company from the 90s. They are very good and super accessible. As I wrapped up recording last week, the news broke that Brian Michael Bendis had signed an exclusive deal with DC Comics and will be leaving Marvel. This is a bummer, considering that Bendis has done some of the best work at Marvel in the past 20 years or so, working on Ultimate Spider-Man, having a spectacular run on Daredevil, an iconic run on Avengers, and co-creating Miles Morales, Riri Williams, Jessica Jones, and so much more. However, I'm excited to see some new faces at Marvel and new people getting a chance to handle some of the characters that he's been in control of for so long. Also, I'm super interested to find out what he will be doing at DC, what titles he's going to be writing for, what characters he's going to be possibly creating even. One of the things that I was most worried about was addressed by Bendis on Twitter when he said, "I have very good intel that Miss Williams, Riri that is, will live past me in the best way possible. Stay tuned." So, hopes are high there. Bendis currently writes Invincible Iron Man, Spider-Man, Jessica Jones, and Defenders for Marvel. There's no word yet as to when his tenure on those titles will end or when his DC exclusive agreement will begin. There's also been hints from Jonathan Hickman that he may be following Bendis over with his own deal, but this isn't official as of yet. There's been a lot of good shaking up of the entertainment industry lately, and comics are not immune to this. DC Comics has finally addressed the allegations of sexual harassment against editor Eddie Berganza and terminated his employment. And now it's time for comics from last week. And before I fully do that, I want to mention that I finally reached the Demon Bear saga in my New Mutants reread, and it was even better than I remembered it. It isn't without its problems, definitely, but it's still my favorite and most iconic comic story. This past week, we got Mr. Miracle number 4. Scott Free is on trial for his life, and they are having the trial at his house. So Big Barda picks up a vegetable tray. This was the best issue of the week for me. Tom King is wonderful, and this does for Mr. Miracle what King did for Vision last year, but in its own unique way. We also had the return of Moon Knight with issue number 188. And it's going to be very hard to top Jeff Lemire's run on Moon Knight, which was super cerebral and had some of the most beautiful art I've ever seen by Greg Smallwood. This comic, however, is off to a pretty good start. They set a dark tone and don't really give much of a look at how they're going to handle the hero himself, but we do get an in-depth origin of an interesting new character for the series. I'll need to see how they handle Moon Knight himself before I make a full judgment on the series. If you like darker street-level Marvel, you should probably check this out, but maybe start with Lemire's run because it is the best. Miss Marvel number 24 had the most perfect dialogue as per usual, and Kamala's making some really hard decisions. This has been a really consistent book, and I think that if you're not picking it up, you're missing out. Runaways number 3 is picking up a lot of steam here. The team is coming back together somewhat, and they are finally dealing with what happened to Victor in Tom King's Vision series. I could not be more interested in what's happening in this comic. It's pretty great. Now it's time for the comics that are coming out this week. Amazing Spider-Man number 791, The Fall of Parker, Part 3. This is solicited as Spider-Man and Mockingbird Flying in the Air, Kissing. And that's all I wanted. I want so much more, Bobby. Please and thank you. I'm very interested. Defenders number 7. I saw a preview page for this one with Elektra fighting Iron Fist, and it looks beautifully done. This series has been really good, and this is one of the reasons I'm really sad about Bendis leaving, because he just started the series, and it's going so well for me. Champions number 14. It looks like this issue will deal with the High Evolutionary having apparently made Viv human. I still don't know how I feel about that, but hopefully this issue will help me come to a conclusion. Super Sons number 10. Sounds like it might have some fallout from the Batman Catwoman proposal, and this book is already one of my favorites on top of that, so I can't wait. That being said, you should also check out Batman number 35 for more of that ongoing situation. Hawkeye number 12. Kelly Thompson is writing an amazing team up with Kate and Laura Kinney. I might preemptively call this my favorite issue for next week. I think that's probably how I'm going to feel about it. The solicitation reads, Hawkeye's latest showdown with Madame Mask has left her fed up with clones and all of the shenanigans surrounding them. So when Laura Kinney, the all-new Wolverine, shows up in LA on the hunt for a mad scientist bent on creating an army of Wolverine clones, Kate volunteers the services of Hawkeye Investigations. Secret Warriors number 8. I sometimes feel like Matthew Rosenberg is writing just for me. And I think Secret Warriors could be a really good series going forward out of Secret Empire. This issue brings in Mr. Sinister, who has turned his experiments from mutants to Inhumans. This series has great humor and great heart. I love what Rosenberg's doing. I'm really fully on board. X-Men Blue number 15 brings us the Mojo Worldwide conclusion. Jean Grey and her team of X-Men take the fight straight to Mojo. This crossover has been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they wrap it all up and where they take it from here. Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man number 297. Zdarsky and Kubert have really put together a fun Spider-Man comic, but with the last issue, it has set itself up as an important story with real weight. I didn't expect that. This issue starts the new storyline, Most Wanted, where they will continue exploring Spider-Man being a hero and Peter Parker being looked at as the menace. And that brings us to a close for this week's episode. Let me know what you've been reading and what comics you're excited about. Or just keep up with what I'm reading on Twitter @FleshEater. If you want to get into contact with us as a podcast, hit us up on Twitter @read_brave, on Instagram @readbravecomics, email us contact@graphocast.com. If you would like to support the Graphomania Podcast Network and specifically this show, check out patreon.com/graphocast. That's patreon.com/graphocast and get some extra goodies for doing so, including my detailed show notes for the stories we cover on the Excelsior podcast. And please remember to leave a rating and a review for us on iTunes. Now it's late, and I've got to go to bed. Who am I kidding? I've got to go finish my New Mutants reread so I can start my Runaways reread before the show comes out. Goodbye! This has been a Graphomania production. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to graphocast.com, graphocast.com. Follow us on Twitter @graphocast and like the Graphomania page on Facebook for news and updates.